Hello and welcome to June's virtual information session for aspiring candidates, hosted by Edmonton Elections. My name is Chris Haywood, Project Lead of the Elections Office, and joining me again today is Aileen Giesbrecht, Returning Officer and City Clerk with the City of Edmonton. Hi, Aileen.
Hi, Chris.
At this time, we acknowledge that we're on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and the traditional Métis homeland of Region 4. We acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, from First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. Turning to today, our specific area of focus is a new element of municipal elections in Alberta, third-party advertising. And we know based on the questions that have come into our inbox that this is something that's top of mind for all of you. We'll be sharing some information through some slides with Aileen, as we have done in our last few sessions, and then we'll move to a Q&A where we'll get to some of those questions that you've shared with us over the past few weeks. A reminder that you can email us at any point with your questions on anything related to candidates in the Edmonton election. Send those to elections@edmonton.ca. And a final reminder before I turn it over to Aileen, that please, if you're able to, do seek out some independent legal advice to fully understand your obligations as candidates as they're described in the Local Authorities Election Act. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aileen.
Thank you, Chris. And happy Friday to everybody who's out there watching us live today. So we've just got a couple of slides where we want to take a bit of time just to talk to you about, as Chris was saying, something that's new within the Local Authorities Election Act, which is third-party advertising. So we have had quite a few questions come in, people asking, well, what is a third-party advertiser and what is it that they can do? So third-party advertising is a way for outside organizations, and I say outside of your own campaign, individuals or corporations who want to either support or oppose a candidate that is running in the municipal election. So that could be somebody who's running for school board trustees, somebody who's running for candidate for councillor or for the mayor. So somebody could form a group comprised of either individuals, corporations, union organizations, employee associations, and they could create their own third-party advertiser to either support or oppose a candidate that's running in the local election. So one of the components that's really important to remember, all of these regulations and all of the rules around forming a TPA is in the Local Authority Election Act, but there's two groups that are not able to be part of a TPA. And the first one that's really important is if you are not part or resident in the province of Alberta, not just the city of Edmonton, but the province of Alberta, you're not able to be registered as a TPA. You shouldn't be joining a TPA organization, either as an individual, a corporation, or a group. And if you are a registered charity and you try to register as a third-party advertiser, we won't accept that application. So really quickly, third-party advertising is outside of a candidate's campaign and their own advertising. It's done arm's length to a campaign for candidate. It is a third-party organization opposing or supporting a candidate that is running in the election, again, mayoral, councillor, or a school board trustee. So that's at a really high level who third-party advertisers can and cannot be. So as it relates to what can the advertising be, there are different time periods for third-party advertisers as opposed to candidates advertising their own campaign. So I'm going to start with a candidate's campaign. So once you've filled your papers in and you've provided them to Edmonton Elections, we've reviewed them and accepted them, you are officially a candidate. You can start raising money and you can start your advertising campaign. Third-party advertisers have a shorter time period as per the legislation. Third-party advertisers were only eligible to request to be registered, collect money and advertising, and that time period started on May 1st, and it runs right up until Election Day on October 18th. Just so you're aware, as of today, the City of Edmonton Elections does not have any registered third-party advertisers. But again, if we do get any, those groups or those individuals or that third-party advertiser is able to campaign for or against any candidate that's running in the election. And some of the advertising that you might see, it could be billboards, it could be mail-outs, it could be text messages or phone campaigns or pamphlets. So it might be the same tools that are being used by a campaign for a candidate, but it is a different group of people using money from different sources than an actual candidate's campaign. So the A lot of the similar language, but very different. Third-party advertising is very different than campaigning as a candidate. So I've mentioned a couple of times the registry, and you might be wondering what we're actually talking about there. So just like a candidate needs to complete some paperwork and pay a deposit and come into Edmonton elections here at City Hall and file your papers or mail them in, third-party advertisers, they also need to fill in some paperwork and they need to submit an application to Edmonton elections. And the criteria or the threshold for if you have to register with us or put in your forms to register is if you plan on collecting or spending more than $1,000. Now that doesn't speak to the number of candidates you're going to oppose or support. But if you are going to collect or spend more than $1,000, please go to our website. You can find the form that you need to fill in, as well as a quick how-to guide to complete the document at edmontonelections/third-party advertising. Give us a call if you have any questions, and you need to submit that paperwork to ourselves. And then we'll review the forms from there. And if a candidate, or if a third party is approved, and their name will be added to the public registry, and you can find all of that online at our elections webpage. So we've talked a lot about TPAs, or third-party advertisers, and how that election advertising is not part of a candidate's campaign election platform. So what you might be wondering, what do you have to do if somebody reaches out to you and says, I want to support your campaign, or I want to support your candidacy? You've got two obligations. One is you should remind them or let them know that there are responsibilities under the Local Authorities Election Act, and they should really reach out to Edmonton Elections and make sure that they're registered. The other responsibility is to make sure that you're not working with a third-party advertiser to support your campaign and to advertise on your behalf. The rules governing your advertising as a candidate are different than the rules for the third-party advertisers. And so you should not be working with a third-party advertiser to supplement your own campaign. So just be really careful and clear. If you are a candidate, somebody reaches out to you, make sure that they're aware of the third-party advertising rules, which are on our website, and you should not be working with them to enhance your own campaign. It might also be worth mentioning, if you do become aware of somebody or a third-party advertiser who is in opposition of your candidacy, we're happy to answer questions and talk through what the process is to make sure that they're registered. But candidates do not need to give their approval for a third-party advertiser to either support or oppose their campaigns. They're very, very separate and distinct, very different rules under the Local Authorities Election Act. So really quick overview on third-party advertising, which is brand new to the Local Authorities Election Act this year, and we're happy to answer any questions. Back
Great.
to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm glad we're spending some time to talk about this specifically, because as you've mentioned, it is new for everyone. And I want to start then with a very high-level question that's come in a number of times. You've spoken to this already, but can you clarify again, what's the difference between advertising that I might do as a candidate through a third party versus a third party advertiser?
Fair, good question, completely fair. So if you are a candidate, let's just say, Chris, you're running for school board trustee and you have $10,000 and you are going to be spending a lot of that money on advertising, perhaps on billboards, or you're doing your own mail outs, or you're going to do a telephone campaign, but that's paid for by your own campaign contributions. That's not third-party advertising, even though you might be using third-party services to promote your candidacy, or billboards, which are owned again by third-party. That's not third-party advertising. Third-party advertising is either an individual or a group or a corporation based here in Alberta. They've registered with Edmonton Elections if they're only going to be campaigning or doing election advertising in one municipality. They might be doing the similar things, promoting or opposing your candidacy. They might be using some of the same tools, but election advertising as a third-party advertiser is very different and distinct from the advertising that is done by candidates. And again, you're not supposed to be working, and you're not allowed to work with third-party advertisers to enhance your own campaign.
Okay, so if I'm buying some radio spots, I don't have to let Edmonton Elections know if I'm buying them from a certain radio station. That radio station doesn't have to register as a third party. It's all very distinct. That's part of campaigning.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. You mentioned the registry and the $1,000 threshold, that trigger that requires a registration. If I'm supporting as a TPA, if I'm supporting multiple candidates, but I'm not planning on spending more than $1,000 on my advertising for each, do I still need to register?
Great. Another good question. The threshold for registration as per the Local Authorities Election Act is either collecting $1,000 or spending $1,000. So even if you're only spending $500 on 6 candidates, that still collectively will put you over the $1,000 limit, and you do need to register. But one thing I should probably add that I might have missed in my presentation is that if you are going to be, as a third-party advertiser, promoting or opposing candidates in over 10 jurisdictions, you don't register with the local municipality. You actually register with the provincial registrar, which is through Municipal Affairs, and all of that information is also available on our website. So if you're just advertising in the city of Edmonton, collecting or going to spend more than $1,000, reach out to us, get the forms online, and send in your registration forms, please. Okay,
great, thank you. I want to turn to some more resident focus questions, I guess, because some of these have come in as well. So if I understand that there's very distinct legislative responsibilities for candidates and for TPAs. If I'm a resident, I've found my candidate of choice and I've contributed to their campaign and I'm at my $5,000 limit. If I find out there's a TPA who's going to be supporting that candidate, can I make a contribution to them, or am I tapped out because I've reached my limit for campaign contributions?
Again, good question. So the contributions to candidate campaigns are different and distinct from contributions to third-party advertisers. So let's say your neighbor wants to support, again, you're running for trustee, they've given you $5,000 up to the limit for your campaign, and they, again, want to support a third-party advertiser who's also going to be actively supporting your candidacy. They can also make a contribution to the third-party advertiser. They're different and distinct, and in addition to your campaign needs to file a campaign disclosure statement. So do the third-party advertisers. Third-party advertisers also have to file a disclosure statement in March of 2022, and that will list out all of those who have made campaign contributions to the third-party advertisers. So again, similar language, similar practices, different groups, and they're not working together.
Okay. So my main takeaway is that things are very distinct and that I should pay attention to that separation in the legislation.
Yes.
Okay, great. While we're talking about the registry, if I'm a member of the public, I'm driving along, I see some billboards in support of a particular candidate. How do I know whether those have been put there by the candidate or by a third party? Is there a way for me to identify that distinction?
So again, there are rules in the Local Authorities Election Act about what requirements there are for third-party advertisers. They need to, the advertising, whatever that format is, needs to identify who the third-party advertising group, individual, corporation is and how to reach them. So if you see something and you're not sure and it's in opposition or in favor of a particular candidate and you're not sure if they are registered as a TPA, the first place you can go is to our website. If and when we do receive applications, and all of that information will be on the website. Or if you have concerns over something, please do give our office a call and we can look into that for you.
Right, okay. And so while we're on this topic, then we're talking about the relationship between candidates and TPAs, and it's very clear that there can't be collusion or any sort of work in that regard. Edmonton Elections approves the registrations of third-party advertisers, but is there anyone else, the candidates get a say in how a TPA operates?
So just to be really clear, there shouldn't be a relationship between candidates and third-party advertisers. They might be aware of each other, but there should not be a working relationship. And so if a third-party advertising group or individuals wants to support your candidacy or oppose your candidacy, that's done independent of your agreement. Right. So again, you don't get a say in how a TPA what forms they choose, how much money they collect, or what forms they choose to advertise in. The regulations or the rules in the Local Authority Election Act outline what is permitted, but there is no relationship between a candidate. And if a candidate has a TPA that is campaigning against them, there is nothing in the legislation that says that that's not prohibited, because the whole purpose of TPAs is either to support or campaign against a particular candidate in any of the municipal or school board elections coming up this fall.
Okay. It's just part of the election landscape now.
It is.
So talking about the election landscape, we hear a lot as members of the public about the different types of elections that are out there. We talk about the federal election, we talk about the municipal election, obviously the provincial election. Sometimes we talk about elections that happen in other countries if they're particularly interesting. And some of the terminology that's used in each kind of leaches into one big election conversation. That's what I mean when I'm doing this with my hands. So if I hear the term PAC, Political Action Committee, can I assume that's the same thing as a TPA?
It's a fair question, but the political action committees, particularly, I'm assuming you're talking about down in the United States, they could be around supporting a candidate or an issue. That is not the case in Alberta under the Local Authorities Election Act. The third-party advertisers are only for groups, individuals, corporations who are campaigning for or against a candidate, not an issue. The rules do not apply to issues, campaigns on issues or topics. That is, TPAs and PACs are not the same things. So just to be really clear, the language in Alberta, particularly for the election that's coming up, is for third-party advertising, and it is very specific for or against candidate or candidates.
Okay. So if I'm a voter, if I'm a candidate, TPA is really the only thing I need to concern myself with.
In
that regard,
yes.
Amongst a million other things that I have to pay attention.
There have been a lot of significant changes since the Local Authorities Election Act was updated since 2017. So it is confusing.
It's new, but we appreciate all the questions that have come in around this. It's good to know this is on people's radar and that people are interested in finding out exactly what their obligations are, because it is complicated. Those are the questions that we have around TPAs, but we do have at least one that's coming on another election-related topic. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Go for it.
We've talked about it before.
Okay.
Bank accounts. Yeah.
Okay.
How does the legislation work, or what does the legislation speak to in terms of the type of bank account that I have to open as a candidate for my campaign contributions and expenses? Is that mandated in the Local Authorities Election Act?
So yes, so there are rules around when you come and you file your papers, you submit your forms, your nomination papers, and your deposit. When you do file those forms, if you want, you can also give us your bank account information. There needs to be a clear and distinct bank account or accounts for you to put your campaign contributions in and for you to draw on for your election expenses. There's more information on our how-to guide on the website, and if you've got particular questions, you can give us a call. But just whoever is asking that question, thank you very much for raising it. When you're filling in the form with the bank account information, there is a section on the same form that talks about where your election record's going to be kept. Your election records in reference to that form is not limited to your financial records. So yes, the bank, the financial institution will have some financial records, but we're also asking for where will your actual records relating to your entire campaign be held, whether that's your campaign office, your campaign manager's home, but whatever that address is, please make sure you put that on the form. And we're not looking for the banking information is there, and we need to know the address of that. There will need to be a separate location for where your election records are stored. But again, if you have any questions related to the specifics of the forms, please give our election team a call. We're happy to help you out so that when you come down to City Hall to file your papers or you send them in, it can just speed up the process and we can hopefully get things approved quite quickly for you. So that was a great question, and thank you. Was not expecting that one.
No, well, we had some time. I thought I'd throw it in. One thing I do want to add to that, though, is that a lot of our learnings around this election process comes from your experiences as candidates. So we know that some people have run into a little bit of confusion when they go to open their bank account. Banks will ask, is it a personal account? Is it a business account? Is it, what are you opening? There's nothing in the Local Authorities Election Act that speaks to the type of account that you need to open as a candidate. So you can use a personal checking account if you'd like, provided it meets those stipulations that Aileen just described there. It's for the exclusive use of your campaign. All your expenses, all your contributions go in and out of that account, and it can't have been anything you've used in another aspect of your life previously. So some banks, I think, will require confirmation of your candidacy before they'll let you open a specific account, but you're not obliged to open a certain type.
But that's a good point. And so if you do go to open it and you're having challenge with the financial institution, because maybe you wanted to open it before you came and filed your papers, just to be aware, once you bring your forms down to us, if they've been completed correctly, we don't need to make any changes after you've left, you will get an official notification back from Edmonton Elections. That email with a scanned copy of your nomination papers should be enough for the financial institution to open the bank. And if there's any issues, again, just give us a call. We're here to help and hopefully make this as easy for you, or this element as easy for you as possible.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, because there are a lot of things to keep track of as candidates. So we appreciate that things even early in the nomination cycle are still top of mind for a lot of you. I think that's all I want to get to today. Please do, though, continue to send your questions to us as they come up for you at elections@edmonton.ca. A number of ways for you to stay informed. If you're looking for more information, in particular on third-party advertising, there is a specific section of our website that you can go to for that. So please do check on there. Those pages are updated regularly. You can also follow us on Twitter @EDM Elections. Subscribe to our Candidate e-newsletter if you haven't done already, and keep track of the virtual information sessions that will be coming up over the next few months. This is actually our last candidate focus session for a little bit. We'll be switching gears and moving on towards working the election and voting in the election. So you can expect to see a couple of differently focused sessions coming up in the next few weeks, but we will come back to candidates again as we get a little bit closer to the election. And with that, I'll say thank you on behalf of myself and Aileen, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.
Take care.